I invite you to join me today in creating the fourth world, a world of abundance where people have ample fresh air to breathe, clean water to drink, renewable energy, access to technology and education, and the ability for each of us to achieve our greatest potential. Unfortunately, the path for development that we are currently set out on is not creating this world. We are doing development wrong, and we have created a false binary between developing and developed countries. Think about it from a human development perspective. There's not one day when you suddenly wake up in your life and say, okay, I'm done, I'm developed, everyone can be like me now. Well, maybe for a second when you're an arrogant teenager, but then you get over yourself and you're constantly developing new skills and gaining new knowledge and trying out new things, focusing on what really matters: family, community, a sense of place, belonging. And at the end of the day, when you think about your aspirations and what you chose to develop throughout your lifetime, what were those things? A sense of humor, skills, the ability to give back. There are people all around the world with aspirations. And many of these people aspire to live a first world lifestyle. But if every single one of the 7.4 billion humans on the planet had an American's footprint, they would eat 71 pounds of beef per year. Each own 1.26 cars on the roadways, consume 100 gallons of water per day, and generate 4.4 pounds of waste every single day. This lifestyle would require 5 planet Earths. And there is only one planet Earth. There is no planet B. We have essentially set ourselves up with this backward paradigm, which is leading us on a crash course to destruction. The first world is a misnomer. In tech, first is not the best. First is the alpha. It's your alpha product. It's still buggy. You're working out the kinks. You're getting to know your market and your users. And you're constantly learning from your user feedback, iterating, innovating, and creating new releases, 2.0, 3.0. The iPhone 7 doesn't have earbuds. The iPhone 8, it's not going to have a screen. So why have we set ourselves up in international development, where first is the best? Now, undeniably, the first is number one at some things, aka first world problems. But there are other things that are not so savory, which we are great at. The concept of linear waste, taking raw materials out of the ground, turning them into single-use products like water bottles, and then putting them into a landfill. This is a human construct, a misnomer. In nature, there are no linear cycles. Nature is circular, and every creature's output is an input for another system. We're number one at monoculture, which is growing the same crops over and over again on the same land. Nature would never do this. Nature is abundant and wild and raw and diverse. And monoculture is actually degrading our topsoil's ability to create nutritious food. We are number one at unconscious consumerism, which is exacerbating the rich-poor divide globally. And we are number one at generating carbon dioxide emissions, which are creating climate change. So why are we doing development backwards, where number one is the best, and then there's nowhere to go from there? I propose we flip the script and start moving forwards towards a fourth world. Now, in some circles, the term fourth world has been used to discuss least developed nations, like Haiti, where I'm working. But I propose that third world countries and least developed countries are actually closest to this ideal because they haven't invested billions of dollars in legacy infrastructure that is capitalizing on fossil fuels, and they still have abundant natural resources. Now we're going to do a little bit of time travel There are many different scenarios that the future holds, and we're going to visit a worst-case scenario, where business as usual has carried on unchecked with the same status quo assumptions that profit is valued above everything else. Close your eyes for a minute and come with me to the year 2050. What does your body feel like? Who is the community around you? What type of world do you live in? Now, we're going to take a couple of headlines from that future. Come back to the year 2050. Sea level rise has caused major cities to be underwater. New York, London, Mumbai, LA, completely evacuated. People have lost their homes, belongings, and way of life. Entire countries are completely underwater, island nations and low-lying areas. And sadly, the citizens of these countries had some of the least to do with creating climate change. Storm systems are increasing with ferocity and severity. We started to wake up way back in 2005 with Katrina, Superstorm Sandy, Typhoon Haiyan, and Hurricane Matthew, but that was just the beginning. The accelerating feedback loops of methane bubbling through the permafrost as it melts at the potency of 20 to 30 times the CO2 are causing a runaway cycle for climate change. We should have noticed back in 2014 when the 70-meter-wide sinkhole was discovered north of Russia. Bees have gone extinct. Fracking is causing regular earthquakes and toxic water supplies. Global refugees are fleeing for higher ground. And resource wars are sparking, similar to the 11-year drought that preceded the conflict in Syria, pushing 5 million refugees out into the world. But there is one upside. 9 out of 10 sea turtles surveyed are stoked about sea level rise. Just kidding. The sea turtles died with the coral reefs. Now, let's bring ourselves back to today. What were some of the early indicators that showed that we were headed towards this worst-case scenario? Who's familiar with the number 350, as in 350.org? 350 is the maximum survivable parts per million of carbon that we can maintain in the atmosphere to sustain life as we know it on the planet. Unfortunately, last year, we surpassed 400 parts per million of concentration of carbon in the atmosphere, which means that at this point, we need to actively sequester carbon out of the air and put it back down into the earth where it belongs by planting more trees, through sustainable agriculture and responsible business practices. 3 species of bees were just declared extinct or endangered in the United States. And as Einstein said, when the bees go, humans have less than 4 years of life left. We are clearing 48 football fields of forest every single minute. And much of this paper is used in single-use processes like toilet paper, drinking cups, paper towels. And these fields are being used to grow crops like palm oil, which is used in beauty products and a lot of processed food. And up to 8% of the Pacific Ocean is garbage. It's hard to tell how big this gyre or gyres are. The estimates range anywhere from the size of Texas to 2 times the size of the United States. But the reason that it's difficult to gauge is because the plastic has actually decomposed to the point where it is changing the pH level of the ocean. In the Anthropocene, the geological era in which man has dominated the earth, through flat-top mountain removal, through mining, fracking, drilling, paving, and urban sprawl, we have witnessed a larger movement in landmass than when tectonic shift split apart Pangaea to form the continents that we know today. And over the last 500 years, we've experienced 25% loss in species. These animals have recently gone extinct. Your children will never get to see them in person. And this inequality exists in the animal kingdom, but we are also perpetuating it in our own societies Imagine that the next Marie Curie or Elon Musk is a little girl at the end of a dirt road, living in a shack with no electricity, and she has to carry water on her head for 6 hours per day. Humanity is actually cheating ourselves by not letting this next generation of geniuses access technology and education. This inequality, unfortunately, is growing. There are 62 individuals on the planet who have as much wealth as half of the human population, $1.76 trillion. And trickle-down economics has not worked. Since the 1980s, these 62 people have accumulated a 40% growth in wealth, whereas the bottom half of the economic pyramid has only gone from earning $1.90 per day to $2 per day. And 20% of humanity does not have access to electricity. How are they supposed to get ahead if they don't have electricity? This is the problem that my company, 10 Power, is working on solving, because electricity is the most fundamental building block for modernization, for purifying water, for accessing the internet, and providing education and self-empowerment. We are doing development wrong. Since the Industrial Revolution in the 1750s, carbon has been growing exponentially in the atmosphere, and every time there has been a correlating rise or fall in GDP, we have seen carbon going up and down. We need to decouple from this Industrial Revolution concept that in order for countries to modernize, they must go through this period of abusive labor, of taking elements out of the ground and turning them into greenhouse gas emissions, which we are still doing today. I propose we break this cycle, that we move into a world that is powered by renewable energy and a paradigm of abundance. Now let's imagine a fourth world future. In the year 2050, where everyone is brave enough not just to dream of the world that they want to live in, but to create it. Here are some headlines from this future. 100% of humanity has access to 100% renewable energy. We've coupled cutting-edge technologies like solar and water purification so that we have abundant resources for people to have access to clean water. We are drawing upon the knowledge of our ancestors to replenish the land and using sustainable agriculture to create healthy topsoil. And all of the countries on the planet have adopted the Costa Rican principles of biodiversity in their constitutions, which give animals the same rights as human beings, and of course, human beings the same rights as each other. Urban planners are utilizing smart building techniques like net zero energy so that the buildings we live and work in are actually generating oxygen, electricity, and water. And every single human has access to the mother brain, the internet, which is a catalog of all knowledge in the past and is able to contribute to all knowledge in the future. We also have the ability to achieve the highest level of education that we desire. And society has embraced traditional ecological knowledge so that native PhDs in the sciences can combine their grandmother's stories with their research, creating breakthroughs in technology. We're measuring what matters. As opposed to GDP and GNP, pure wealth statistics, we've embraced gross national happiness, which was created by the Sultanate of Bhutan, which takes into account women's health, life expectancy, education, in addition to just income. So how do we get there? Well, we have a great start with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which outline a path for eradicating poverty, hunger, and creating access to clean technology in Government 2.0. The World Economic Forum recently published a book about the fourth industrial revolution, which will combine artificial intelligence, big data, will be powered by renewable energy, and will put people first. Swanson's law, which is similar to Moore's law, states that every 10 years, the price of solar panels will fall by 50%, and the industry has been meeting or beating these expectations. Solar is now employing more people than the oil, gas, and coal industries combined. Net zero energy buildings are a reality. There is now a net zero building energy code. There is a handbook and a magazine, NZE. And restorative agriculture has actually been proven to be one of the #1 ways for us to effectively sequester carbon from the atmosphere and replenish not only the Earth, but our food systems. The era of big data, artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things is going to usher in completely new levels of our understanding for the universe. We now have access to understand how every single input and output influences the system to bring us back into balance. And we have the business models. My company, TenPower, is bringing renewable energy to people across the planet who do not have access to electricity. This is one of our installations in Haiti, where we put solar on a water purification facility that's bringing clean drinking water to the people. And we're serving the 1.3 billion people around the planet who are living in energy poverty today. And what's particularly interesting is if you look at the places in red that are suffering from the most acute energy poverty, and you overlay solar generation potential, those places with the least access to electricity today actually have the highest solar generation potential on the planet. I'm also very proud to announce that today we are launching the Power Haiti Coalition, which is in response to Hurricane Matthew. It is an industry coalition of US-based and Haiti-based businesses that are working to provide disaster response with resiliency, sustainable infrastructure, renewable energy, and access to economic empowerment. The fourth world is not necessarily a geographic location. It is a nation state of mind. And I invite each one of you right now to think about one headline from the fourth world future that defines the world that you want to live in. Does it have to do with transportation, community, infrastructure, learning? And now I'd like you to make one commitment in your life to move this vision forward. Please share your ideas. #4thworld. On behalf of myself, TenPower, and all of the sea turtles, thank you.